Thank you for joining me for another episode of A White Woman in Distress. This podcast is dedicated to raising awareness for missing children, teens, and adults who have vanished under heartbreaking circumstances. My mission is very simple. I want to keep their stories alive and help to bring them back to their families. In a world where media coverage just isn't equal, it's vital to recognize that many cases go overlooked. Marginalized groups, including Indigenous people, people of color, the LGBTQ+ community, runaway teens, and homeless individuals often face systematic barriers, leading to underinvestigation and inadequate attention. These groups deserve to have their stories told and heard just as loudly, whether it's the jurisdictional complexities affecting Indigenous people, the media bias towards missing people of color, or the stigma facing runaway teens and those living on the streets. These cases remind us real change is needed. Grassroots efforts, community engagement, and legislative advocacy are essential in turning this tide. You don't have to be on the front lines to make a difference. Even small actions like sharing this podcast or just sharing information in general or providing anonymous tips can play a crucial role in bringing loved ones home. Every family deserves answers, and every missing person deserves to be found. Before we dive into today's story, please be aware that the content may include themes of violence, sexual assault, or other distressing topics. Listener discretion is advised. Today, we'll be discussing the heartbreaking disappearance of Adele Marie Wells, a 7-year-old girl who vanished from Flint, Michigan on November 21st, 1958. Adele's case remains unsolved over 6 decades later, and her story continues to haunt her family and the Flint community. Adele Marie Wells was born on January 1st, 1951. At the time of her disappearance, she was just 7 years old and in the 2nd grade at Jefferson Elementary School in Flint, Michigan. She was one of 9 children in her family, growing up in a bustling household filled with siblings, love, and laughter. Her father, Carl W. Williams, worked in a local factory, providing for the family in the industrial city of Flint. Adele was described as a lively and sweet-natured girl with black hair styled in waves and bangs, with brown eyes and a bright smile that could light up a room. On the day she disappeared, she stood 3 foot 6 inches tall and weighed approximately 50 pounds. On the morning of November 21st, 1958, Adele stayed home from school because she had a slight cold. Despite her minor illness, Adele decided to walk to her grandmother's house later that morning. Her grandmother lived just 1 block away, a short and familiar route. Adele wanted to show off how her mother had styled her hair, which I just want to say, like, the fact that it was 1 block away, that's not that far. Like, many of us can even see a block down the street. So it's upsetting to me that something happened to her within this 1 block, within like just 1 block of her house, and even within distance to her grandmother's house. It's insane to me that no one knows what happened. Everybody's being left with so many questions, and it baffles me that no one can figure out what happened to her. And after spending some time at her grandma's house, Adele left at around 11:30 a.m. She was wearing a gray cotton coat, a blue dress with small animal figures along the hem, red knee socks, and black shoes. Tragically, she never made it back home. Adele's family immediately became concerned when she failed to return home. A search began almost immediately, with local law enforcement and community members combing the area for any signs of the little girl. Witnesses came forward with troubling accounts. Several people reported seeing a young African-American man carrying a girl who resembled Adele near Gilkey Creek on Lewis Street, a location not far from her grandmother's house. This man was described as light-skinned, wearing a gray coat and red socks, and he was reportedly walking towards a black Chevrolet parked nearby. In the days prior to Adele's disappearance, children at her school had reported a man matching the same description attempting to lure them into his vehicle. This alarming detail suggested that the individual may have been stalking the area and targeting young children. Despite these leads, the man was never identified, and his connection to Adele's disappearance remains unconfirmed. In an effort to bring Adele home, police released her description to the public. Age at disappearance, 7 years old, height 3 foot 6 inches, weight approximately 50 pounds, hair black styled with waves and bangs, eyes brown, clothing gray cotton coat, blue dress with small animal figures along the hemline, red knee socks, and black shoes. Her case captured the attention of local media, and the community rallied together, but no significant breakthroughs ever emerged. Despite the initial flurry of activity, Adele's case eventually grew cold. Over 6 decades later, there are still no definitive answers about what had happened to her. Her family never stopped wondering, and the community has never forgotten her. One of the most haunting aspects of Adele's disappearance is how quickly a seemingly ordinary day turned into a tragedy. The safety and familiarity of the neighborhood, even just a walk to her grandmother's house, should not have ended in such mystery and heartache. Adele's disappearance serves as a tragic reminder of how important it is to keep the stories of missing persons alive. Though the years have passed, there's always been hope that someone, somewhere, might hold the key to solving this case. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Adele Marie Wells, please contact the Flint, Michigan Police Department at 810-237-6800. Even the smallest detail could bring answers to her family and closure to a case that has remained open for far too long. Thank you for listening to this episode of A White Woman in Distress. Let's honor Adele's memory by continuing to share her story and supporting efforts to bring justice to all the missing persons. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, if you see something, say something, and do something.